You guys know I like to get out as much as possible, and weather is generally not a big factor for me. Whatever the weather is, I like to get out. But what makes that possible is having the right type of gear. And one thing I wanted to do this year is upgrade to a boot, more of a winter waterproof boot. And that is what I did. So I did some research and I bought the Garmont is the company name. You can see here. And the boot is called the Momentum Snow GTX Winter Boot. That is this guy right here. And I got it at REI on sale for about $100. I don't know by the time I post this if that's going to change or not. But it looked like their regular price was $140. So I didn't do a lot of checking around, but that's just the price that I saw. But what I want to talk about, I want to keep this fairly simple and pretty quick, is comfort, looks, the soles, and warmth. And to me, probably warmth and comfort would probably be the two most important things, arguably. But let's start with comfort. These things were very comfortable out of the box. You know, I hate going through that break-in period with new boots and that garbage. However, these required a very little break-in point, and they were really, really quite comfortable. Looks. You know, aesthetically, I like these. I like these quite a bit. I think they're a good-looking boot, in my opinion. In fact, you know, you could probably wear these kicking around town. They're that nice, in my opinion. Soles and traction. That's pretty important too. Look at the soles on these things. That is some killer traction. And I'm not just saying because they've got big studded traction or whatever it is there on the bottom. I'm saying this because I've used it. The first thing I did with these is I took them out snow shoveling my driveway. And I've got boots, but man, I just slide everywhere and it's a pain. These things, geez, they just stuck to the ground and were very nice to shovel the walks in. That was just kind of the testing phase to get them out there and see how they worked. Let's go to warmth. These have 400 grams of thinsulate, which means they're rated down to -35. -35 degrees is what these are rated to. So these got to be pretty warm, right? Well, let's discuss what how I've used them thus far. So I told you the first time I've used them doing the shoveling of the driveway. Worked fantastic. Comfortable, really grippy, and kept my feet warm. Second time I used them, I was out looking for deer. And found a beautiful 4-point, by the way. Anyway. And I was out there, and they did pretty well. I love the way they handled in the snow. My feet stayed dry, and they stayed warm. I say it that way for a reason. We'll get back to that. The third time I used them, we went up to on a snowshoeing trip, and the temperature got down to -8. Okay, these are a -35, right? -8. That means my feet should stay very, very warm. Well, they did stay warm when we were actually snowshoeing or going through that physical movement. When we stopped and we started making camp, started making a fire, and weren't moving around as much, my toes started getting cold. But okay, that's fine. A little nip, that's no big deal. And my toes started getting colder and colder and colder to the point that, oh my gosh, they were hurting. In fact, I ended up taking off one of my boots and my socks and warming my toes up by the fire. That's how cold they were. And again, -8 degrees. These are rated at -35. So the warmth on these, I'm going to say that it's a miss. The reason I talked about the second time when I was out looking for deer and kind of said it as a question about keeping my feet warm is while I was out there, I could kind of feel my toes getting a little bit cold. And we as consumers often want to justify our purchases or make ourselves feel good that we made a good decision about a purchase. And so I kind of just negated the fact and thought, oh, it's not that bad. It's probably not an issue. It's some kind of weird fluke, right? Granted, they weren't cold enough to really make a big deal out of, but it really wasn't that cold that day either. I mean, it was probably in the 20s. So considering these are rated down to -35, I think they should handle that just fine. But I got in that cold weather, and I'll tell you, it was pretty miserable. Now, like I said, when I was moving, they were fine. And I got back and I started looking online at some of the descriptions, and some verbiage popped out to me that did not before. And that verbiage is this. It says rated to -35 during active use. Right? During active use. And I think that's a little misleading myself, and I want a boot that if I'm standing somewhere in the cold, my toes will not get cold. And these are not those boots. Do they have a lot of plus size to them? Absolutely. I mean, they've got the Gore-Tex to help keep you dry, that 400 grams of Thinsulate. This is kind of a cool feature. I didn't mention this. You see they have this little D-ring here for gaiters, putting those on. And during the winter, those are very good. I haven't picked me up a pair yet, but I plan to. I just think if it's not going to keep my feet warm, then what's the point? I mean, they're comfortable as far as the boot conforming around my feet. They look good, and the traction is excellent. They keep my feet dry. But if my feet aren't warm, then I've got a problem. So I think what I'm going to do is try and take these back. Now, I purchased them at REI, and they're pretty renowned for being good about that. So I do have some scuff marks on them, so we'll see. If they don't take them back, then they're going to be a good kicking around town boot, and I guess I'll use them, but I'm not going to be as happy with them as I thought I was going to be. But if they do take them back, I'll be on the search for another boot that will keep my toes from freezing and falling off. Okay, it wasn't that bad, but it felt like it at the time. Anyway, so these are the Garmont Momentum Snow GTX winter boots. You know, maybe for what you're planning on using them for, they might work perfect. For me, on that outing, it just kind of sealed the deal that these may not be the boot for me. So I'm going to continue the search and see what I can do.